Guys, today I'm going to talk about a topic that's not really new or special on the YouTube circuit, but is super important to me. It's important that you know that indoctrinatory propaganda is something that really upsets and frustrates the three of us, and I can speak for myself that it is especially something that really just gets to me quite a bit. On YouTube, one of the biggest perpetrators of this propaganda is PragerU. The YouTube channel / Koch brothers mouthpiece hosts a variety of personalities to share short video essays, even sit around a fireplace with Dennis Prager himself, and generally just be controversial and non-PC while patting themselves on the back for it. While I could talk about the channel as a whole, it's way more content-y and honestly fun to break certain videos down piece by piece. I know that they're an entity that is discussed heavily on YouTube, but I just can't help but get in on that fun, though plenty of smarter, better equipped, and more experienced YouTubers have taken them on before. Anyways, I've decided that today I want to talk about this video. What is intersectionality? When I was perusing their catalog of videos to find one that I felt I was really suited to talk about, I came across quite a few videos that harbored some major fear-mongering tactics, as well as some that overlapped with other issues, or just kind of featured far-right figureheads. While it would be interesting to fall down that rabbit hole and discuss everything, it's a task that I don't feel I should take on my own. So we'll save that idea for future videos that the three of us might be able to do and enjoy doing together. When it comes to this video, however, it's about an issue that I find exceptionally important. A little bit of background. I consider myself an intersectional feminist for a variety of reasons that we'll probably reach later. For this video, I want to take Ben Shapiro's arguments point by point and then examine the video's integrity itself. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's necessary regarding the misinformation and misunderstandings strewn throughout this PragerU video. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into Ben's first point.
You probably think your opinions matter. You probably think you're an individual with unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions. Well, I hate to break it to you, but according to current leftist orthodoxy, you're wrong. You see...
Okay, so this is a really common theme in PragerU videos, wherein they start off with a common sense appeal to make themselves seem more honest and likable, while also making the opposing side seem crazy and dramatic.
Your opinion only matters relative to your identity, and where that identity ranks on the hierarchy of intersectionality.
So I know we're already stopping again, but a quick interjection that it's almost ironic that he brings up opinions mattering because of identity, considering some things that we're going to be talking about later on in the video.
If you're now thinking, what the hell are you talking about? You haven't spent much time on a modern college campus. Intersectionality is a form of identity politics, in which the value of your opinion depends on how many victim groups you belong to. At the bottom of the totem pole is the person everybody loves to hate, the straight white male. And who's at the top? Well, it's very hard to say, because new groups claim victim status all the time. No one can keep track.
What Ben Shapiro is doing here is coming up with an entirely made-up definition of the word intersectionality. From the book, Is Everyone Really Equal? Intersectionality is defined as the understanding that we simultaneously occupy multiple social positions and that these positions do not cancel each other out. They interact in complex ways that must be explored and understood. And if that definition might come off as too biased, a definition from a quick and easy Google search shows that the definition of intersectionality can be defined as the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. It's this acknowledgement of intersection of various identities that really leads Shapiro to say straight white male, rather than simply one of the three. By him saying this, he's playing into intersectionality. He just doesn't understand how it works. His way of placing the straight white male at the bottom of the opinion totem pole and reducing the use of intersectionality sets it up to seem as though all anyone is interested in regards to intersectionality is hearing what the victim groups have to say. Is ironic, because by placing cishet white guys at the bottom, he's letting them become their own victim group, in a way. But yeah, completely inaccurate definition of intersectionality. Great chart, Shapiro.
So, how does this intersectionality thing play out? Something like this. Let's say you're a gay white woman. Your opinion matters, but less than that of a gay black woman. Why? Because while all women are oppressed by the patriarchy, and all gays are oppressed by the heterosexual majority, blacks have a victim status that whites obviously don't. Of course, a gay black woman's victim status is less than that of a black trans woman, who ranks below a black Muslim trans woman, and so on. The more memberships you can claim in oppressed groups, the more aggrieved you are, and the higher you rank.
Okay, so there's a lot there. From the masculine portrayal of trans women to a further misunderstanding of intersectionality. I feel like I shouldn't have to say why it's a bad thing that they made a cartoon trans woman look more stereotypically masculine than the cis women they showed. Right? Anyways, he continues to make a claim that intersectionality is a hierarchy of opinion values when that's not quite how it works. The point of intersectionality is to acknowledge merging aspects of one's identity with the end goal of abolishing hierarchies. It seems almost as though this is Ben's way of saying that he's mad that no one wants to hear his uterusless ass self-talk about why abortion is bad. In the end, that seems to be what this opinion thing boils down to, just because activists have told the world to start listening to the other voices than those in power, when, in fact, cishet white male voices are still the loudest in the room. They're just not the only ones there anymore.
Get it? Good, because it's about to get even more complicated. Intersectionality takes your victim status and uses it as the basis for creating alliances with other victim groups. 30 or 40 years ago, activists encouraged racial solidarity among blacks to combat oppression. But today, that's not enough. Today's activists demand blacks make common cause with other allegedly oppressed people: gays, lesbians, transgenders, Palestinians, Native Americans, whomever. Here's the logic. A black gay and a Hispanic gay may not belong to the same victim group racially, but they do belong to the same victim group on the basis of their sexuality. By focusing on the places where various victim identities intersect, intersectionality creates a united us versus them paradigm, righteous victims rising up together to fight the oppressor, those dreaded straight white men. This explains why at a rally protesting the treatment of Palestinians by Israel, you might see a contingent of lesbian activists. That's intersectionality at work. They're so united by their victim status that it doesn't matter if Islamists throw gays off of buildings or murder female family members who defy their father's wishes. Victim solidarity trumps all other considerations.
Here, Shapiro mentions at the start of this section that it's about to get even more complicated. He seems really upset that social theories aren't as simple as he'd like. I think he's too caught up in his Daily Wire safe space to realize that the world's population is much more nuanced, and so consequently discussing the ideas of identity and how they interact with the world and are harmed by those in power is going to be just as nuanced. In this section, Shapiro claims that the purpose of two people having a shared aspect of identity is used to create an us versus them paradigm, and is designed to attack straight white men. This is, once again, a gross misunderstanding of intersectionality. One simply needs to return to the definition of intersectionality to realize this, and that after processing and implying that definition, the fact that intersectionality works to explain how people from different social groups experience discrimination differently. The homophobia that a white gay male experiences will be different from the homophobia that a Latino gay male experiences, in addition to the racism that said Latino man will have to endure. This isn't to create the paradigm that Shapiro imagines, by examining that difference in discrimination, we're not saying that the Latino man, because he has to endure racism and homophobia, somehow matters more than the white gay man. It's more so to encourage deeper thought within these disadvantaged groups and help us understand each other. And does that unite us? Yeah, in a way. But its purpose is also to help the people in privileged groups understand us, rather than a way for us to destroy them for aspects of their lives that they cannot change. it works in multiple ways. Like, while it might unite us, we're not united for the purpose of destroying the white guy. We just want the white guy to listen to us when he hasn't for the past how many hundreds of years. His example of lesbians protesting for the humane treatment of Palestinians is like the next thing that he brings up, and it's way too generalized and separated from the event to actually work as an example. There are LGBTQ plus citizens of Palestine, for example, so said lesbians protesting for the humane treatment of Palestinians could be lesbian Palestinians. His other examples of cultural homophobia is also really inconsiderate of other aspects of life. Many of the aforementioned LGBTQ Palestinians are also working to fight against the theocracy that benefits from cultural homophobia.
The term intersectionality was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, a professor of law at Columbia University. She explains that intersectionality was my attempt to make feminism, anti-racist activism, and anti-discrimination law do what I thought they should: highlight the multiple avenues through which racial and gender oppression were experienced. To Crenshaw, America is a terrible place full of victim groups, each with their particular set of grievances. Why shouldn't these victim groups get together and form a political coalition unified by the belief that the majority society has harmed them? That some professor tucked away in an ivory tower would come up with this nonsense is not surprising. What is surprising and disturbing is that so many people actually go along with it. America is the most open, least racist nation on the planet. That Professor Crenshaw is free to spin her nonsensical theories and get paid well for it should offer adequate proof of that. And since when do you have to live someone's experience in order to understand them? You don't have to live as a slave in order to understand that slavery is cruel and wrong. You don't have to live as a woman in order to recognize the evil of rape. Finally, and most important, intersectionality promotes the biggest hoax of all, that we aren't individuals who are to be judged on the basis of how we act, but are merely members of groups to be judged on the basis of our group identity. In other words, you and I, as individuals with our unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions, count for nothing. Our racial and sexual identity count for everything. It's hard to imagine an idea less likely to produce a free and equal America than that. But what do I know? I'm just a straight white male. I'm Ben Shapiro for Prager University.
It's here that Shapiro begins to question the intellectual worth of the creator of the term intersectionality, Kimberly Crenshaw. He works hard in a short span of time to paint her as a political elite, detached from the events that are shaping real people. It's because of this that it's important to note that Crenshaw, the professor tucked away in an ivory tower, went to the same university as Shapiro, Harvard. Also note that both of his parents worked in Hollywood. Shit. Matilda is Ben Shapiro's cousin. Matilda! His repeated attempts to present himself as the average guy often fail because of his blatant economic privilege, a privilege that even people who don't necessarily understand power dynamics can see. I come from an area full of a bunch of, rednecks and right-leaning people, and I can guarantee you that they don't want a random rich guy telling them how they feel. His target audience is the working class, a class that he's never been a part of a day in his life. Meanwhile, Crenshaw was born into a middle-class family in Canton, Ohio. Her mother was a middle school teacher. Her background is objectively much more relatable to working-class Americans than Shapiro's is. After this, Shapiro says that America is the most open, least racist nation on the planet. When I looked for a source to prove his point, however, all I could find were other works by himself or PragerU. Where are the statistics, Ben? Where are the feeling-crushing facts? Where? Shapiro closes out his video with a few questions and analogies. What stuck with me, however, is this. Since when do you have to live someone's experience in order to understand them? While this is an example of a common sense idea that PragerU and Shapiro himself often use, This is especially ironic to me, seeing as it's the same question that intersectionality actually asks. Intersectionality does not want you to live someone's experience just to understand it. An important aspect of intersectionality is the fact that you can't live someone else's experience. Shapiro's biggest lie about intersectionality is what comes next, however. He claims that intersectionality promotes the biggest hoax of all, that we aren't individuals who are to be judged on the basis of how we act, but are merely members of groups to be judged on the basis of our group identity. In other words, you and I as individuals with our unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions count for nothing. Our racial and sexual identity count for everything. Again, it's an ironic statement considering the fact that the purpose of intersectionality is to combat the fact that those in power group disadvantaged peoples in with one another, and that its design of acknowledging aspects of identity is meant to serve the purpose of individual value beyond race and sexual identity. It simply acknowledges that these are aspects that are important to us as individuals and that our experiences are based upon them affect the way we view and interact with the world. Okay, so now that we've looked at the ideological aspects of Shapiro's video, let's look at the structural and miscellaneous issues, specifically the ones that even a second semester college freshman should be able to point out, let alone an Ivy League graduate like Shapiro. For example, within his sources, Shapiro cites himself, PragerU, or the Daily Wire, of which he's editor-in-chief, more than any other source. Not only is this an egregious example of bad self-citing, but none of these sources are peer-reviewed or in any way expected to meet a level of honesty the way more scholarly sources do. While self-citing isn't necessarily always a bad thing, like if you're writing something that's a continuation of another peer-reviewed work you've written, or if you're working on a study that is based on past data you've found, and that's been found to be accurate, Shapiro's use of the technique here is entirely self-serving. It should also be noted that typically, self-citers also cite other works from institutions or research that they have no association with to back up their claims and avoid being caught in bias. As a public figure spreading information, Ben Shapiro has an ethical responsibility to provide evidence-based claims. Not to mention that, he has a responsibility to himself of avoiding hypocrisy. Facts don't care about your feelings requires actual facts for the statement to be relevant. It's these responsibilities that lead me to wonder why Shapiro isn't using peer-reviewed sources in his work, especially since his own alma mater has entire web pages dedicated to teaching students how to use sources, one of which explicitly states the necessity of peer-reviewed sources. Just because someone has written something down doesn't mean it is worthy of discussion. Before you decide to rely on a source, you should evaluate the source and decide whether it is appropriate to use. You should always determine the qualifications of the author, the purpose of the source, that is, in what context it is created, the scope of the source, what it covers and in what depth, and, where relevant, the currency of the source. This is just scratching the surface of issues within this video and its sources. I could research each source and each source's sources and examine the fucking lasagna-like layering of issues within them, but I don't need to. I could, and I played around with doing it in my own time for shits and giggles, but I don't need to. When it comes to this video and others by PragerU, you just have to scratch the surface to see just how misleading it all is. And there's no way, just as a final thought, there's no way that Shapiro is doing this unwittingly. That's the point of me bringing up Harvard. It's clear that he is purposefully spreading this misinformation to service himself. He's not looking out for people in the working class. He's not even really looking out for conservatives. He found a subsection of the population that works well as a target audience for him and played into that. That's it. That's all Shapiro's ever been interested in. Not really politics or debate. Just seeming smart. and getting away with it. But yeah, that is everything. Works cited in the description. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.